Back to back on that, we now cross to SABC News reporter Ntlantla Kgatlhane. He is covering the sentiments of workers at Cosatu's rally at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in the Northwest Province. Ntlantla, a very good morning to you too as well. It's great to have you on the agenda this morning. What's happening there where you are today, this May Day?
Good morning to you and to our viewers. Indeed, we are coming to you live from the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in Rustenburg in the Northwest Province. This is where Cosatu is holding the National May Day celebrations here in the Northwest Province. We are expecting, according to Cosatu, about 22,000 members of unions affiliated to Cosatu to form part of this event today. It's going to be obviously addressed by Cosatu President as well as ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. And today we are seeing members of the National Union of Mine Workers, NUM, who have already shown up here. And let's just hear their expectation as this event will be going on. What is it exactly that they would like to hear from the leadership of their federation and from the president as well? Abuti, re lebogela nako ya gago. Re bolelle gore matsapa di a tsa kae mo lephateng le le dirang mo go lone le gore le batla go utlwa go khomiwa kgotsa go buiwa ka dintlha dife gompieno.
Ka gola taba e gologolo ka go fetisa ke a gore re le basebetsi ne re ikopela di rights tsa rona gore mo mmerekong di sebetse mme lentswe la rona le utlwelle ke anana gore production mo mosebetsing e kala pele ka basebetsi go tloa fatshe up until to the highest. So ntwe e tsahalang gore re le basebetsi re kopa bongwe re kopa di rights tsa rona le lentswe la rona every time ga re bolela ba re utlwe gore re kopa so because foundation ya mmereko o successfulness ya mmereko o e tloga go basebetsi ke yona ntlha re kopa papa
re a leboga. So the gentleman explains there that they would like to hear or rather to have a situation where the mine management listens to the concerns of the workers and respect the rights of the workers. Let me bring in another a gentleman here. Ntate wena gompieno matsapa a le nang lone ko sector e le dira mo gone ke afeng and o batla a rarabololwe jang?
Nthwena ke khothaletsa haholo ke tsaba ya gore keng re buile ka mandate gore keng ka ba COVID re bile le bothata a tatlhelo ya basebetsi ka re tsone re khothaletsa ka go ka etswa ka matla gore basebetsi be le go ba lahletswe ke mebereko ka tlasa mabaka a COVID ba tlisitswe morao go lokiswe mabaka a ohle le gore keng a senyetswe ke mosebetsi.
He wants the reinstatement of employees who got retrenched due to COVID-19. As you know, that as some sectors were, affected by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we saw some sectors obviously retrenching some of their employees. I'm not alone here today. On the other side is my colleague Ntlantla Kgatlhane, who is standing by with Dr. Nzimande, the General Secretary of the SACP. Over to you, Ntlantla.
Well, thank you so much, Ntlantla. With me as we continue with this coverage with SACP's Dr. Nzimande, who's going to talk to us a little bit more about, the challenges that South Africans continue to face, the working class. Thank you so much, Dr. Nzimande, for your time. I guess the question that I want to pose to you, SACP as the vanguard of the people, unemployment is high, there's a lot of retrenchment, more than 50 people live in poverty. One would ask, where is the vanguard when this is happening?
Well, it's May Day today, which is an important day of workers. Our call really as the SACP is that the most urgent task facing workers in our country is for them to unite. And I dare say also to unite across federations to fight very clear common struggles that are facing workers. The first big thing actually is unemployment, as you say, retrenchments that are taking place, and there are very high levels of workers who are unorganized. I don't think we've been at this stage of the levels of unorganized, the numbers of unorganized workers. So that actually requires, our call is really for trade union unity beyond just federations. That's the first and most important thing. That's our message today. The second thing actually that we don't think people seem to be taking it seriously is the disasters that happened in KwaZulu-Natal and parts of the Eastern Cape. This is sending a very strong signal that climate change is with us. And by the way, the fundamental cause of climate change is capitalism and its greed. We are really now faced with the real prospects of the destruction of human civilization. And even the existence of humanity itself is under threat. Now, what we are also then going to be saying and calling for that we need to be part of as the SACP is that this is an opportunity for government in particular to focus on climate resilient infrastructure. Just basic things that we need on a massive scale. Stormwater drainage systems, we don't have them. Roads, we just don't have them in many parts of our country. Housing, we need to build more resilient, climate resilient housing. We also need to be engaging our people that they should not be building in floodplains and all that. In other words, we are saying an important part of worker education is about climate change and its mitigation. We are still going to have more of these floods. We are still unfortunately having to have more of these damages. How do we use this opportunity for government to lead a massive infrastructure and public employment programs, which will then also achieve another goal of a state-led employment creation effort, a really big one. If truth be told, a lot of infrastructure that we still talk about today was infrastructure built under apartheid, Much as there is some infrastructure that we've built, but we are so far behind, and with the new challenges now of climate change, let's use this negative situation to turn it around to create a better society. Now, the other challenge is rising inequality in our country. It's just not sustainable. The dangers we face now is that we're going to have new oligarchs. You have the CEO of Sibanye, the mining company, being paid 300 million rands in 1 year. The CEO of MTN being paid just over 84 million rands in 1 year. Yet, how much is mobile and data costing in our country? And now we are going to have actually very rich and wealthy oligarchs in the midst of poverty. And we are saying to workers, let's stand up and fight against this. Workers have got the muscle and the power to be able to fight this. But the other key challenge that is important is the fight against corruption. We've raised this as the SACP that we need to be self-critical together with the workers. Where were we when state capture was happening? Workers are everywhere. They're at Eskom, they're at Denel, they're at Transnet. They're in the private sector where some of this corruption has actually been taking place. Where were we? So the big challenge, if we are to change things for the better in our country, workers need a very clear strategy to mobilize against corruption. Because what is state capture? State capture really is counter-revolution. And by counter-revolution, we mean things that are being done to undo all the gains we've made since 1994, all the advances that we've made as a country. State capture actually is the theft of the future of our country. In that way, it is counter-revolution. Workers need to ask themselves, where were we and what is it that we need to do so that such a thing must never ever happen again. So those are the key messages that we say as the SACP. These are the things. We are not just calling on workers to take these things up. We'll be together with them in the trenches, as we have always done as communists. We don't just call upon others. We want to join together with the workers to actually fight this. Now, the last thing is the issue of building the productive sectors of our economy. We are calling for a basic income grant as the SACP. We welcome the fact that the 350 rands grant for unemployed people, its extension, we welcome it. We also would like to see a universal basic income grant. But that ultimately is not the solution to the problems of unemployment that we have. The ultimate solution is building the productive sector of our economy. What as the SACP have been calling for more than 20 years now is what are known as prescribed assets. You know, in this country, we have more than 8 trillion rands worth of workers' pension funds in both the public and the private sector. Many other countries would invest 15% of that into infrastructure, another 15% into the productive economy. We are just not doing that. You know, these funds are sitting there. Often some of them are being taken by middlemen. And these are workers' monies, workers' funds, that if we can deploy some of them into the productive economy, we are then likely to see massive job creation. And that is what, again, we will be calling for today, to say it is in the hands of the workers to actually be able to pressurize that their own pension monies must be invested in such a way that they build the economy today.
Talking about basic income grant, you guys have been calling for it, saying that it will play a role in terms of, alleviating a lot of poverty and assisting many South Africans. And the question that I want to pose to you is that, does that not create a lot of dependability on government, where we would find ourselves being a welfare state instead of, a government putting more effort in creating jobs?
Well, social grants play an important role. We mustn't underestimate them. In fact, without social grants, we would be in a far worse situation in terms of alleviation of poverty. By the way, also, social grants contribute to the economy in terms of household expenditure. If you give people 350 rands, they are going to go and buy food. So then you are actually part of contributing in building your own economy. But we are saying, precisely that's the point we are making as the SACP, that's not the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is job creation. That is why we are calling for the things I've been raising. Use this disaster of climate change and floods to start massive public employment programs by government. And we can really do that. And that can really begin to make a difference. That's why also we are saying workers' pension monies, the manner in which they are invested must be able to rebuild and expand the productive sectors of our economy, the manufacturing sector of our economy. That is why also we are saying we must stop corruption in its tracks. This thing of the state capture is actually quite embarrassing. That as a country we could actually find ourselves this kind of theft and repurposing of the state for personalized, selfish accumulation, and billions of rands, have actually been lost. That is why we are saying workers in this country can never ever allow this to happen. But in order for that to happen, we need a strategy and mobilization against corruption by workers. Because in the end, that is how then we'll be able to mobilize new resources for the purposes of socio-economic development in our country. But we are also saying the other big challenge that faces us, because of high levels of poverty, inequality, and unemployment, we are beginning to see very serious social decay amongst our communities. Drugs and substance abuse, gender-based violence is partly a reflection of that the anger of the people gets turned against women who are such an important layer in sustaining our communities. So it's very important. If you look at in South Africa today, there are demonstrations, protests almost every day. And that is a sign of the social pressure and socio-economic pressure that is in our households, in our communities, that we actually need to deal with. The other big challenge we have is mental health in our country. It's a very, very serious challenge. And it's often hidden in society, but many families, they are dealing with this on a daily basis, We need to be able to mobilize more resources. That's why we must fight against corruption. That's why we must seek to grow and develop our economy through developing the productive sectors of that economy.
Let's talk about the alliance politics. The disunity of the governing party, the ANC. Would you regard that as a liability in terms of, achieving the goals of alleviating poverty, changing ordinary people's lives?
The state of the ANC is a huge concern to the SACP. Really huge concern, because this country needs the ANC, to be quite honest. That will unite the widest possible sections of our society across the board and lead an effort against poverty, a better life for all, as it says, rightly so. But the state that it is in is not healthy at all. That is why, as the SACP, our view is that we can't walk away from that. The ANC is our movement, We must be part of trying to confront the problems that the ANC is facing. We are very pleased that there is some attempt at renewal of the ANC. We must be part of that effort. For instance, we are very pleased that they are correcting this thing that would happen, that you are told to step aside, but you can be able to stand and contest for a position in the ANC. That was just an unsustainable thing. We are glad that the National Executive Committee of the ANC has corrected that, because that is actually sending a message that we must deal with these particular kinds of problems. We also call on workers, come and use your own organizational experience at work to rebuild and renew the African National Congress. Because without the ANC, this country is in trouble. That's a fact. But the positive side of things is that there is now seems to be a commitment from the current leadership to rebuild and renew the ANC. The allies should be part of that effort.
Thank you so much. That was Dr. Nzimande from the SACP there, calling on workers, saying that if they come together and become one, and work as one, a lot of challenges would be alleviated. Also touching there on corruption, saying corruption, it's also an issue and very embarrassing that the country had to go and face state capture. With that being said, it's back to the studio.
Ntlantla Kgatlhane there, our reporter, joining us live from the Royal Bafokeng Stadium there. Thanks very much indeed, and I'm sure we'll be touching base with you a bit later.